Just initial analysis of tonight's game to get us started.
We left it late, but the most important thing is that we got the goal that we much needed and the 3 points that we much needed. Phenomenal performance from start to finish. And I've been in these games where you are relentless and you keep pushing, and you get hurt in one moment. And so I was so pleased with the players that they were able to get it to the final whistle and score the goal. So yeah, well deserved performance and effort and victory.
Awesome.
Seb, last game out in Utah, you guys weren't able to get a shot on target. This first 45 minutes, you had 8. How much was that a conversation heading into this game, and especially being at home, having that kind of chance creation within that first 45 minutes? How pleasing was that?
No, it was great. Some of the football that we played in the first half is probably some of the best football we've played, especially like since I've got here. So, going into half time, there was full belief. There was, you think like you're in a boxing match and you're just punching away and you're just waiting for that knockout punch. And, we left it to the 88th minute, but it wasn't due to a lack of effort. We just kept going and going and going, and their keeper played well and made some really good saves. And we wanted to set a tone early. We knew, Chicago going into the game wanted to bounce back and felt probably a little bit vulnerable coming here, and we wanted to make it as intimidating as possible. The fans were brilliant as well, getting right behind us, and so we just kept pursuing it. And I was so pleased with Julie because she got that well-deserved goal and she's been working so hard for that moment. So she deserves all her flowers for the game.
Kind of staying with Julie, just obviously it's been about a year and a couple months since her last goal, but you've kind of touched on it just now, just seeing her progression over the last couple months, getting in dangerous positions, creating chances. What have you kind of seen just from her recently that you've seen the confidence kind of growing for her and finally getting that goal?
Just being patient, right? Taking your opportunity when it's presented. It's hard, right? You've got someone like Barbara who has scored 12 goals in, I think, 14 games. And so, she's been so consistent with her, goal scoring this season. And so, it's kind of accepting your role and understanding that, I need to be patient. And when the moment's presented itself, I've got to take it. And for Julie tonight, being patient, obviously Marty played the 9 and then, Julie comes on and makes immediate impact and gets the winning goal. So, there was a lot of conversation what this team would look like with the absence of Barbara. You can see that we were able to create a lot of opportunities, whether it's with crosses, through balls, shots from outside the box as well. But the goal's determined by the game is determined by goals, and so that's the final part of it, right? We're creating opportunities, we've got good build-up moments. Now it's about getting that feeling of hitting the back of the net, and you can see tonight we weren't far away from many chances. I think every player deserved a goal tonight, and just happy for Julie that she gets her moment and gets the game-winning goal.
You kind of mentioned just all the chances. Haley hits the crossbar in the 9th minute. It looks like it hit the line. Marta, who's normally clinical from the spot, misses her second ever penalty in NWSL. Did it almost feel like there was just kind of this force that was almost keeping the team from scoring? And then you kind of mentioned it at halftime, just telling the team, keeping that belief. How tough is it when you have so many opportunities that don't find the back of the net to keep that confidence going?
Yeah, it's obviously tough, and I'm not on field to be on that there. But you got to continue to have belief in what you're doing. We had planned that, we had trained that. Areas that we can exploit Chicago. The game plan worked going into the game. You're just hoping that final touch is a moment where it hits the back of the net. Soleil on that left-hand side was really threatening. Jackie with, her ability to be on the outside but also cutting inside with Oyani overlapping, and we got into those areas where we were getting a lot of crosses and just narrowly missing it. Do you know what I mean? So a lot to build on, a lot of positive. Really pleased because if we hadn't have got that goal, it had been hard. But we have said this many of times where we've had a lot of shots. If you go back to, I think the first 2 games of the season, we combined 50 shots in those games. And so it's just nice that we're able to get the win and get the 3 points and enjoy our weekend.
Leaving it late is kind of been a theme this season. I think the team has 7 goals in the final 15 minutes of games, which is only second in the league to, I think, San Diego. What is it about this team just in those late moments that they kind of find the way to shine and come through?
I think especially at home, you want to, push it. You want to put teams under pressure. You don't want to leave yourself too vulnerable. And I know, with all that dominance, Chicago still hit the crossbar. And on another day, that might have gone in and it would have been devastating. But you got to keep going. You have to make it entertaining here at home, in front of our own fans. We have to keep pushing. We need 3 points and we need that goal. And so, yes, it's brave, it's bold. You keep that belief, and players like Julie could take that opportunity and take that responsibility to put the ball in the back of the net. And so, if we are, passive in that moment, then I'm sat here talking about a 0-0 draw and saying, well, it's great that we got a clean sheet. After all that dominance, you need to win these games.
Speaking of defensively, just having the starting core as you did, and then be able to bring in Haley and Hoffa, who've missed some time, obviously trying to keep minutes as it has been basically this entire season, but just getting pieces like that back, that especially with Hoffa, who's world-class center back, just having her start her progression back to full match fitness. How important is that, and having her keep the clean sheet in the final bit of time that she was in?
Yeah, it's been hard. We've had to manage minutes all season long. I don't know how often we've had the opportunity to play the same back line this year, but it's next player who can step up. Even with that back line, you look at it and it's a very good back line. And, it is a luxury to be able to bring on players like Rafa and Macy, who are very competent in this league and have played at high levels and been very successful in this league. So, yeah, the back line is they're challenging for positions. We obviously have to manage minutes with certain players, but as they get more minutes on the field, it's going to be difficult decisions for myself to pick a back line. I think in the forward line is you can see that we're lacking some numbers in those positions. We're lacking some players who are out and out forwards. If you look at the final stages of the game, we've got Nicole Payne, and that was just because of her threat and speed up top, but a natural fullback. But we wanted to keep it consistent, like for like with Soleil and Nicole with that pace. But that's just where we're at in the front line. We obviously need some help in that position. But yeah, everyone's challenged for positions and places, and being in that starting lineup.